about our relationship to time, which is often one of regret. When you run a film backwards, there's a kind of perfect undoing of the world. You can make a huge mess, throw paint across a wall, and when you run it in reverse, all the paint comes off the wall and back into your jug, and the wall is completely pristine. So there's a kind of utopian perfection in inverting time. And it sort of corresponds to the longing we have to be able to undo things we've done, whether they're things we've physically done or things we've said, as if it could be done without a trace, which we know it can't be in the world. The Refusal of Time project started with vague thinkings about, not just about time, but how you make something that is as immaterial as time into something that is palpable and listenable to or touchable in an exhibition context. And the first way this changed was by thinking about music and sound as an analog for time. You know, it's a form that naturally progresses through time as you start with the attack of a note and its decay. It continues through time. But once it's turned into sound, you can manipulate it and play with it. You can run it backwards. You can run time backwards. You can stretch it. You can compress it. So that became a very palpable way of thinking about time. The other essential part of the beginning of the project, as it continued, were the conversations with Peter Gallison, physicist and historian of science, who recounted so many, not just the theories of the development of ideas of time, but also the mechanical manifestations. So one thinks of the 24 time zones of the world as a kind of natural and obvious way of dealing with time, but in fact it's a late 19th century invention. It sort of coincides with the Congress of Berlin, with the dividing of Africa between the great European nations, and it's connected to the final mapping of the world, which is a colonial project. So there's always a way in which time and control have gone together. And then, of course, the further development of time, from the perfection of Newtonian time into the relative time of Einsteinian physics, to the end of time, thinking about the black hole. And the black hole is both a physical phenomenon of huge gravity that sucks everything into it, but it's also the complete kind of description of what is that 6-foot black hole waiting for us at the end of our lives, which also, as it were, sucks and devours all of who we were. So it shifts between an idea of science and an idea of very obvious and deep human impulses and feelings. And all of these things are allowed to kind of turn into a hullabaloo, into a mixture of images, of sound, of different kinds of sound, of radio signals and early Morse code, and romantic songs which can fragment and play backwards and run forward.